It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, we're taking a look at the Detroit Tigers as they've reached the quarter pole for the season. Have expectations been met to this point? We'll take a look at what has gone right and what has not worked out the plan year to date and give our thoughts on whether A.J. Hinch and Scott Harris have this team on the right path. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Brzezinski-Drew. It is Sunday, June 4th, and we're talking Detroit Tigers. Joining me to talk about the Tigers today is Coach Andy Shield, Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
We're doing well. We're going to be speaking some good things. We're not, it's not going to all be negative Nelly stuff with our boys of summer here with the Detroit Tigers. But big shout out for the first time in 15 seasons, the Marine City Mariner baseball program are district champions, defeating St. Clair and Lutheran North yesterday. Congratulations to the 2023 Marine City Mariner baseball program. This one's for you.
That was awesome. I was reading about that on Twitter today, actually. So that was good to read. That's awesome. Congratulations to the Mariners. Coach, talking about these Detroit Tigers, and speaking from my point of view, this team on paper had no juice for me for the first time, maybe in my fandom. I just wasn't feeling it. Knowing that Casey Mize wasn't even going to pitch this year, knowing that Tarek Skubal we weren't going to see him till June, and we may see him this month now. Just knowing this is Miguel Cabrera's last season and, not having real high expectations there either. I just wasn't feeling it. After spring training, wasn't seeing anything or reading anything or any ounce of hope for me to say, maybe this team's got something going. And sure enough, they come out of the gate 2-9, but to their credit, they really had a tremendous May. I mean, one of the best teams in baseball in May. And they're still within striking distance of the Central Division first place right now, Minnesota Twins. But, Coach, what are your thoughts before we kind of deep dive into this? What were your expectations going into this season?
Oh, very, very low. We were so poorly run under Al Avila. We were so mismanaged, so poorly run. To really strike it with our fine fans here in the Sports Peninsula, he is the Matt Millen of baseball. He was that inept. He did horrible. It did not work at all. And I just completely unacceptable for what he inherited. Now, he also inherited a franchise that's not owned by the man that was willing to pay for a winner. He's owned by his son. And that son has not proven to have any kind of that street credibility that we said about his dad at all yet. And, we'll see. We'll see. Seems like he's pretty, resonant to the fact to just make sure that those, ledger books look right.
So not to look right for long.
Right. Well, first step in the right direction, we make some changes. First of which was, we got a manager in here that really is in tune to the way things are done in the modern era of baseball. And that's A.J. Hinch and that staff. And, George Lombard, Chris Fetter, all of them, excellent coaches.
That's a great segue,
coach to manage.
Yeah.
And that has been a massive plus and will continue to be for as long as he can tolerate being here. If we show improvements, I think he will. Some coaches may come and go, but the nuts and bolts of this thing are really in place that way. And Scott Harris, it is completely unfair to place any of this on his shoulders at all. This is something that he is working through. He's completely revolutionizing how we're scouted, how we look at baseball, how we make baseball decisions, how we're going to cultivate our depth through the farm system. It's completely being reworked. So, and it's long overdue. So, with that being said, I didn't have very much of any kind of expectations other than I thought we were coached up. I think as we've been competitive and fun. We've had a few nice little splashy players. Eduardo Rodriguez has been amazing. Alex Lang is a fantastic player. Michael Lorenzen has been really, really good. He's been rock solid. These are additions that have either finally kind of shown their stripes or really have been, shown out to be, high caliber Major League Baseball players. The pitching has really been impressive. Offensively, we've won a lot of tight, low scoring ball games. We don't have a lot to hang our hat on offensively other than, we're seeing some development in guys like Riley Green, that it looks good. Akil Badu's having a pretty solid, year coming up from Toledo. That's where he started the year at.
Mm-hmm.
And, Zach McKinstry's been great. And that's been a Scott Harris signing to bring him in. And he's looked real good. Zach Short's coming out of the gates pretty hot. But, we're going to get down to the nuts and bolts. Love that we're competing, that we are, but we're not a very good baseball team.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on a few of the issues, and you touched on it. No offense, but there is no offense. After Riley Green, who, oh, by the way, is on the injured list right now for about 2 months, more than likely, 6 to 8 weeks with they're saying a stress injury on his right fibula or left fibula. I forget which leg it was, but it's out by all accounts a stress fracture. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, it's barren, and we'll be able to articulate how good the pitching's actually been to keep this team even within striking distance of the Central Division first place Minnesota Twins. And injuries have been a big part of that. Knowing, like I said, coming into this season, you weren't going to have Mize, you weren't going to have Skubal for at least half the year. And Matt Manning's been out for almost 2 months now. He's close to coming back. Skubal's close to coming back. So that's good. Turnbull came back. It has not worked out at all. Now he's in Toledo trying to get it figured out. We don't, will he do that? I don't know. But we'll dig into that differently. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll admit, Coach, at the beginning of the year, after a 2-9 start, I was really, the game of life takes over, and I'm just not that engaged in it. And it seemed like every time I turned a damn game on, I'm watching somebody boot a grounder, airmail a throw, drop a foul ball pop up, torque. A few times I've seen that happen, and I'm reading local sportscasters asking if these Gold Glove consideration. I was curious if that was pure sarcasm. I mean, my goodness, a major league ball player's got to make these plays, and I just can't believe, as well as they pitch and as poorly as they've been at the dish hitting, to at times just shoot themselves in the foot in the field is unacceptable. It's just not acceptable. This team's not good enough to carry itself through only one facet of the game. Defense has got to be there. I don't want to see what I saw when I was 11 years old at Kleeman Field and Little League Field in Marine City, Coach. You remember those days. I don't want to see that kind of defense. I didn't want to see it then either. I was part of it at times, admittedly, but I don't want to see that at Comerica Park. And unfortunately, we are seeing it, and it is what it is. But let's get into it now, because we talked about the offensive leaders. Well, what we did here, folks, we on that yellow there highlighted, that currently is what is the major league leading total in these statistical categories. And we want to give a perspective. We don't expect every player on this team to be there. Of course not. That's not the case. But it will give you a perspective on how this team really has struggled, because the names you see in front now have really done a fine job, and they have decent batting averages. They're getting on base, and they're not striking out. That OPS, Coach, is a big deal. I want you to talk about that for a little bit. These are the guys that are getting on base and making contact.
Yeah, on base percentage plus slugging, and that's basically you take those two categories, which is the percentage of how many much of the time you're getting on base per your at bats, with your slugging average, which is the damage that you're doing with your offense, driving in runs, driving in RBIs, extra base hits, home runs, et cetera, et cetera. So if we look at the top OPS in Major League Baseball, and you'll have several that are what you would go into the thousands or the 1 point whatever category. you oftentimes can even have one. Miggy's done it for seasons before.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and there's others that have too. Right now, currently the major league leader in OPS is 1.041, which is telling us that that's rather low actually for June. That's telling us there's not too many guys that are in the 1.000 area. Right now in the league average OPS is in a little lower area than it typically is. I want to say it's in and around 710 is the league average. Well, so we don't have anybody that's near competitive to the top of the list. No one. Right now, Zach Short leads the Detroit Tigers. Well, Jake Marisnik did, but I mean, it may already be at 500. I'm not sure. He just came up, or just started, playing for the Tigers. But I want to say it's Zach Short, but he's really been here for about 10 days, and his is at 903. So that's not likely to hold in that area. Riley Green, for that matter, Riley Green and Zach McKinstry. And Zach McKinstry really is the, by default leader in OPS for the Tigers. I mean, he's got over 100 at bats. So, and he's at 809.
He's getting it done. He's doing a good job.
Getting it done. He's well above the league average. Good, solid player, for sure. And so is Riley Green. You look at Matt Vierling's 649. That's a little below the league average. That's not a guy you want to depend on in your lineup.
No.
So, and Akil Badu's at 728. Now he's come up, he's come up from the minor leagues. He started the year down in Toledo, and he's already showing he's at or around the league the league average right now for OPS. So you go to on base percentage. The league leader in major leagues is 433. He's getting on 43.3% of the time. He's getting on base. That's outstanding. Well, we've got some players that are battling in that category. Riley Green's got a 362 OBP. That's not bad at all. Zach McKinstry has been really impressive, and he really gets on via the walk quite a bit. He really can stretch out pitchers. He's at 384. That's great to see. Akil Badu at 357. Big improvement from last year. Again, Vierling's not, this is a statistic. Any ball player that's really holding their water at all is above 300. They're on 30% of the time. They're getting on base. If you're not quite getting on 30% of the time or better, ouch. And, we'll see some of these others. So, again, we have some decent ball players, but no one near the top and not very many decent ones. Batting average, which is a classic statistic. We all know what that means. We're all pretty familiar with that, which is basically, you divide how many hits you have by how many at-bats, at-bats that you've had, and you'll get your batting average. The major league leaders at 376, likely to depreciate a little bit. That number's probably going to trend into the 360s, 350s, I'm guessing even. But we don't have anybody near that. We don't have anybody batting 300 right now. Riley Green's right there. But as you mentioned before, Drew, and we can go up and down these statistics. As you had mentioned before, Riley Green's not in the lineup these next 6 to 8 weeks, likely.
No, and that's
in the lineup these next 6 to 8 weeks. It's going to be, it's going to be, I would say end of July by the time we really see him again, maybe even 1st of August. So, when your best bat, one of your best bat, if you're, one of your most dangerous bats is not in the lineup, 3 of your top pitchers are not in the lineup. A guy that's thrown a perfect game, or I'm sorry, a no-hitter, is thrown a no-hitter for our franchise. Looks like the Tommy John may have taken, him out, because Spencer Turnbull does not look anything like the guy that was rolling before he got injured. Our league leader, our team leader in home runs is Jake Rogers. That's basically the only thing he has done on offense is hit 6 home runs.
Yeah, perfect segue, Coach, because I want to talk about that. right now and needs to improve. Yeah, Jake Rogers leading the team in home runs with 6 and a robust 152 average, getting on base at a 248 clip. That's beyond unacceptable, quite frankly. There's no way, and I know he played today. That's not going to get it done. Here's the names here: Torkelson and Baez. And I know I'm going to touch on Javier Baez. I know you want to touch on Torque a little bit here. Baez now the RBIs. He's leading the team in RBIs at 27. He's now hitting 223. And he had a pretty good May. Quite honestly, after that benching, the light switch went on and he started doing some more damage at the plate. But coach, he's got a 270 on base percentage. This guy's a strikeout machine, and we all knew that when they signed him. We knew that was the issue, but we expected a 280 average. We expected close to 30 home runs, 80, 90 RBIs, and stellar defense. What we've gotten is occasional pop. We've seen fantastic glove work, and then you're holding your breath on the throw. And then we've seen lackadaisical efforts at times to the point where he got pulled from a game. Big concerns about Javier Baez at shortstop. And folks, I'll be honest with you, as a fan, I mean, I'm not turning on the guy, but I know he has an option to opt out of this contract this year, much like Eduardo Rodriguez. They both have 2-year options to leave. We'll touch on that in a minute, but there's no way anyone in their right mind is going to sign Javier Baez if he opts out to a contract at or above the term he has, which would be $22 million a year over the next 5 years remaining on that contract. So that's not going to happen. Well, why don't we just trade him to who? Who's picking up that deal? It's not even an option. The one thing the Tigers need to hope is that Javier Baez gets hot enough that in his mind and in his agent's mind that he can hit the market and get that money somewhere else. Because I'll be honest, coach, maybe I don't know the guy. I don't get the feeling he wants to be in Detroit. And I question why he signed the deal in the first place. You don't want to be here? Don't be here. I don't know, but that's just my impression. But what are your thoughts on Javier Baez before we talk about Torque?
Well, I mean, the free agent market and the agents, are able to be like trial lawyers, during this kind of time. And I think there's all sorts of examples in it in sports, and we're seeing it more and more and more now. And there's almost like a resentment after a while that they're even playing. I mean, they're just, they've been on this trek, it was even beyond a dream. It's probably their parents' dream to a certain degree, that they, get pushed in this direction and play, uber competitive baseball at a very young age, do all sorts of travel, have all these different experiences and opportunities, through their youth. And, they have talent and it's developed and it, cultivates to a certain degree. Well, then they become either college level or draftable players. And they're part of this small percentage, but to them, it's just, like what they deserve. It's just what they were doing. It's just that this is what they went out and got it, like anybody can. And, I worry sometimes if Javier Baez is kind of out of touch that way and has just really kind of checked out, and really kind of peaked with the Cubs. And, outside of the Cubs, he really kind of hit his apex and his ceiling and is now drifting down towards his descent, because he just doesn't appear to be interested. His offensive approach, I don't enjoy watching him play baseball. He does not look like a person. There's absolutely zero faith in what he is bringing to the table offensively. And that was a huge part of who he is. He'll make some stellar plays defensively. And there'll be times where he, makes a mistake on a play he should make. Go figure. He makes the hard plays and not the easy ones. But his offensive approach, I don't understand it. I don't know. It's hard to believe that's what got him here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest. When I watch him, I see Brandon Inge, with a poor approach at the plate.
I mean, and it's just, but this guy's getting paid at a rate in which, you know, that we're going to be in purgatory for a long time because of that contract. And you're doggone right. Why would he go anywhere? You know, I mean, he's getting paid. And I know he likes his money. We've had his, you know, his feature expose on Bally Sports last year. Johnny Kane went down and did an interview with him. And, you know, he's going to want that money coming rolling in. With Miguel Cabrera, you know, honestly, we knew that this was going to be a swan song kind of curtain call type thing. It's very ceremonial. I guess the reality of it being so ceremonial is just kind of like, you know, if folks have any expectations in Miguel Cabrera, I don't think if he hits one home run, that's what it's going to be. He did the absolute minimum to be ready to go to this baseball season. He hit one real hard the other day where he, you know, it got up about 110 miles an hour off the bat and turned around on it. It was an out. He hit it right at somebody. You know, maybe he gets one of those up in the air, you know, or but what you see is what you're going to get with him. You know, Nick Maton is a guy that we brought in here from Philadelphia when we traded Gregory Soto. Matt Vierling's really kind of, and then we have a catcher by the name of Sands down in Toledo too.
Yep.
You know, Maton, you know, he's this cup of coffee major league ball player. Can play all over the field. He's what you want. He's the future of the game. A guy that can play all over the place and has some pop. He certainly does. He's turned around on a few. But 162 and a 590 OPS. That 590 OPS, folks, is about, you know, well over 100 below the league average. Well over 100 below. So no good. And the guy that I am really frustrated in personally, well, you know, let's say this. Okay, the guy that we got, if we got anything for Justin Verlander, he at least leads us in home runs right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Rogers. He's doing so in mega Rob Deere fashion. Because he's either hitting a home run or striking out. You know, he's got this launch angle kind of modern approach. 152 average, 248 OBP, 622 OPS. It's only that high because he hits the ball out of the park when it hits the old ash of that bat. But the guy that I am really, really concerned about, and I know we are not typically a negative Nelly podcast, but you know, honestly, this is a, you know, kind of a call to of concern here is Spencer Torkelson. To say that we were going to have, you know, Wally Joyner or you know, Mark McGuire-esque statistics coming from him, you know, right away. Rafael Palmeiro, Will Clark, Wally Joyner, you know, even as a level player.
You're already throwing curveballs at me, coach, because when they drafted him, all I heard was third base. And that changed quickly, much like we thought it would. But
yeah, I'm not that I'm not very perplexed by. I mean, because we drafted his college teammate like in the third round, Gabe Workman, and you know, who's still in the organization, still working through. We have some other players that can also play third base. But yeah, Spencer, I mean, I heard, that really just, I don't know what that was all about. But it was his swing and his bat that is why he got that you know, that draft slot that he did. And he's shown nothing of what they said he was going to be in his floor. He's been very underwhelming.
Yeah.
Now his approach seems solid. I know he's given himself, you know, chances and he needs to. But you know, this is now, I mean, he's gone up and down. He went up and down last year and then up again later in the year. He's really seems like the same guy as last year. Strikes out an awful lot. Does not come up with poignant hits. You know, every now and again, okay, you know, he puts us into the lead, that kind of thing with the 2-run double or but he's got 5 home runs. Doesn't lead, he's not in the team lead for that. He's got a quarter of that of the leader. He's got 26 RBIs. Baez has got him by 1. Spencer Torkelson could wind up the leader in RBIs for the Tigers. That's very possible. He's roughly got half that of the major league leader. And a 234 average. That's ugly. That's not what we were told. We were told 250 to 290, 350 OBP, and a 500 slugger. This is an 850 to 900 OPS guy. And in big years, he's going to be that guy chasing 1 point something. And we're not seeing that at all.
No, we've also seen 51 strikeouts from Torque as well. Although but to your point, his approach isn't bad. He has struck out a lot, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily over the approach per se, but I think he's certainly pressing. He had a decent May, because him and Baez were both below the Mendoza line going into May. The April was brutal for the Tigers, and we all know that. But oh my goodness, yeah, it's just been it's amazing looking at how anemic this offense has been, and it's been anemic that they've been able to still be within striking distance of the Twins. But we're going to show you why, folks. And Coach, you touched on all these names earlier, but folks, when you have a whip at 1 or below, your walks to hits per inning ratio. Yeah, and the Tigers have 2 starters and their closer right in that conversation. Talk about these guys, Coach.
Well, yeah, this is a little more promising. This has definitely got some silver lining and some bright sunshine on it. We'll look at the major league leaders in ERA. It's at 1.82. Now that's a statistic, based off of how many innings you've pitched and those kinds of things. There should be things that are considered there. Eduardo Rodriguez has pitched he's pitched in 67 innings.
Yeah. So
for him to be at a 2.13 ERA, that's pretty doggone close to that 1.82. Michael Lorenzen, I want to say, did he pitch today?
Yesterday, and he pitched great.
I think he's pitched 46 and a third, maybe 49 and a third.
He only allowed 2 hits in 7 innings, I believe, yesterday. Yeah, he had another great outing. Of course, he left the game in a tie, since a 0-0 tie, and we end up losing 2-1 in extra innings.
Right, and Lorenzen's pitched 46 and a third, and he's at 321. That's pretty close. Alex Lang, he's pitched about 23 and a third innings. He's our closer. He's at 255. That's pretty close. There's somebody that's just absolutely striking everybody out. 106 strikeouts already.
Yeah,
that's impressive. But Eduardo Rodriguez has got 67 Ks in 67 innings. That's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. Michael Lorenzen's got 41 and 46 innings. That's pretty doggone close. And I want to say Alex Lang's got 32 and 23 and a third. He's got 32 strikeouts. So we've got some guys doing
35 now. So
right. And right. And 67 to 16, 41 to 12, 35 to 13. What I'm talking about is your strikeout to walk ratio there. Very good for those 3 pitchers. Very good. I would also include, I think Alex Faedo is through 26 innings pitched, he's got a .92 whip. Our team leader, our leader in whip is Tyler Holton, 28 and a third innings pitched, and he's got a .88 whip.
Outstanding.
Coming out of the bullpen. And then Will Vest has got 20 innings pitched. He's got 21 Ks, 1.00 whip, 2.70 ERA. So these are guys that are getting things done. They're getting things done. Alex Lang, is probably, he and Eduardo Rodriguez are the 2 guys that we are looking at as being potential all-stars.
Yeah, legit all-stars, not just the Tigers got to have one.
So the Tigers are 26 and 31 and in second place in the American League Central Division because of the pitching staff, because of the work Chris Fetter's putting in with these different players. Chris Fetter's an amazing, amazing pitching coach. There's just no 2 doubts about that. We are on a B side or a B roll as far as if this was a film, if we were movie directors, we are on the B-roll of our pitchers. Like we had mentioned before, 3 of our 5 pitchers in our rotation that was supposed to be pegged to be going this season would have been Tarek Skubal, Casey Mize, Matt Manning, and Spencer Turnbull. Those 4 individuals, that's 4 people. That's 4 people that, of your 5 people in your rotation that are not in there. Yeah. They're not, they have not pitched. Spencer Turnbull did, but we had to send him down. It was not going to work. Matt Manning got injured. He's out. And, the other 2 haven't pitched at all this year. So, yeah, Harris, getting, Lorenzen to come here. Eduardo Rodriguez, sprying to his feet and really having a substantive year and looking real good. Matt Boyd's a guy that, we'll talk about him in a minute. Brought him back. It's been a little bit shaky. But, to go without saying, the pitching's been the bright spot.
No question about it. But before we go on to need to improve, Coach, I do want to touch on Rodriguez. He, like Baez, has an opt-out in year 2, which means he can become a free agent if he so chooses after the season. With the way he's pitched and the statistical line he has, he's getting $15 million a year. Highly likely Eduardo Rodriguez opts out. So
he's going to cross into that low 20s.
You bet. And I'm going to tell you what, this is a season where I'm really glad, I know it's, beating a dead horse, right? But I'm glad Al Avila's not there and Scott Harris is, because there is a market for Eduardo Rodriguez. There is a contender out there that will pay big, big dollars and big talent to get Eduardo Rodriguez for their playoff run this year. And the Tigers need to strike while the iron's hot. He's pitching great. I wish he wouldn't opt out, but guess what? He's probably gonna. So you know what? Fine. I get it. He'll get more money on the open market. So that's fine. And the Tigers will be able to hopefully get a couple very good prospects for him, I would think. I keep getting Justin Verlander flashbacks as I'm saying this. And I'm just like, I'm trying not to put myself in a bad frame of mind, Coach, because I'm hopeful Scott Harris is a much different general manager than Al Avila. But let's talk about some of these guys that do need to improve. You mentioned Matt Boyd. They did bring him back, and he was being counted on to give him some innings. He's pitched better as of late. His WHIP is at 1.35. That's not terrible. Sure, and he had a pretty good outing this week. So I think we're seeing hopefully a turning point. That ERA is still a bit high, 5.57. That's a lot. 53 Ks this year so far, not bad. 22 walks, little high for him, but I think you can see he had a nice outing. I believe he had 9 or 10 strikeouts yesterday. If I'm not mistaken, he
came into that outing with 44.
Yeah, so nice effort there. And then aforementioned Turnbull, and I'm not going to beat on him, but it's obvious he hasn't fully recovered, and hopefully he can from the Tommy John surgery, because let's face it, more guys do recover from that now. I mean, there's likely a pitcher on every team's major league roster has had this procedure done now. That's just how it is anymore. And most come back. I mean, heck, Justin Verlander came back and was outstanding last year. Michael Fulmer came back and likely is not a starting pitcher in this league anymore. So we see that, unfortunately. I've read that Skubal's hitting 98 on the gun now. That's encouraging. That's very encouraging. He's in West Michigan for his rehab assignment. So hopefully after a start or two, we'll get Tarek Skubal back at Comerica Park. But Coach, any thoughts on this list? Because I listed Jose Cisnero for a reason. Because if you look at his statistical line, it's not terrible. The WHIP's high, but I don't know. It's just one of those things that I see every time I turn the game on. Torque's dropping a foul ball out in a pop up out in foul territory, giving the opposition a 4th out, or I'm seeing Jose Cisnero come in and allowing inherited runners, which his ERA looks pretty good, Coach, but he's allowed 16 inherited runners in 21 or 22 innings this year. That's not good.
Right. I mean, and he's got 16. He's given up 16 inherited runs, which I believe what you and I were talking before we recorded was tied for 6th worst in the American League. So, Jose Cisnero is a bullpen guy, middle relief guy. That's going to get you out of here pretty quick. Joey Wentz came in from Atlanta. He was one of the guys, we've gotten at least a taste from him. He doesn't look like a long-term major leaguer. Those statistics are pretty ugly. Like I said, Matt Boyd is, returning here. These are, this would be a thing. We, if we had, Mize, Scooble, Manning, Turnbull, and Boyd, that would be, I guess, a pitching staff we could have had or could be. I'm not so sure, Matt Boyd, where his fit is in long term. Like you had said, it's improved. He had a 9 strikeout performance. He's getting that whip down towards that, well below 1.50. Really you want to see those whips. If you have something that's under 1.3, okay. If it's under 1.2, it's pretty good. If it's under 1.1, that's quite good. And if it's under 1, it's exceptional. So, he's getting to be pretty competitive again. And Spencer Turnbull, unfortunately, this does not look to be very competitive right now. He and Joey Wentz are, really look like more mud hens than tigers at this rate. And then, you mentioned, kind of the Verlander-Fulmer, comparison in regards to coming back from Tommy John surgery, UCL, replacement or cadaver replacement surgery. Yes, Justin Verlander certainly looks to be the part still with the New York Mets. And, Michael Fulmer is just about out of the league. So, that the injury is just devastating. Just like the ACL and football and basketball and hockey, yes, it's a very recoverable injury and physical therapy is amazing. Athletic training, high, world-class, athletic conditioning and training helps as well. But there's individuals that don't come back from those injuries the same either, and we don't see much of them anymore. I fear that could be the case for Spencer Turnbull. I hope I'm wrong, but these are some of the guys that hey, in the course of a Major League Baseball season, you're going to have some underwhelming pitchers. You're going to have some pitchers certainly underperform, and you have to replace them. We have. So I guess if there's anything that we can say that and just how much did Al Avila have to do with that? Okay, guys like Will Vest, Alex Lang, they were around. He signed Eduardo Rodriguez, but he brought in Tyler Alexander too, and guys that aren't pitching so well. Jason Foley is he's been the guy that they'll throw out there every day.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's done a nice job. Jason Foley, if I look at his statistics, he's actually been pretty good. And I know he leads us in appearances with 24, and he also has the most holds, which means if we have a lead, and he pitches and we have the lead when we lead, and when he's done from the game, that's called a hold. He held the lead, and he's done that well for us. So if we've gotten out on the right foot, Jason Foley's been one of those relief pitchers too. So that's been good. But these are some guys that need to improve, and we may be moving on from too, quite honestly.
Yeah, Coach. To wrap this up, and again, great job today as always. But at the end of the day, I think this is a team. I hear fans say, well, they should have got rid of Cabrera 3 years ago. Well, you could say that's guaranteed contract. That's a guaranteed contract. You're not
a good friend of mine and another guy that's a fellow podcaster. He had that. They was like, yeah, but we didn't. So there's no harm or foul now.
I mean, let's face it, the rosters have been slightly expanded to 27 now ever since COVID, and they've maintained that. So it's not like he's taking obviously there could be somebody in that spot that's playing, but who? I mean, honestly, I'm sorry. Is there's somebody down in Toledo that's tearing it up that Miguel Cabrera stopping from coming to Detroit? I don't think so. No.
It's actually helping that.
Well, honestly, I mean, I would hope, and I would think this is the case, because I mean, the one thing about Miguel Cabrera, two things you got to know: he's a sure first ballot Hall of Famer. We know that, But number two, he does love this game. No matter, I mean, he's made mistakes off the field, whatever. I mean, who hasn't? But at the end of the day, that guy loves baseball.
Yeah.
He gave everything to the Tigers in the game. So I mean, to have him in the locker room as somebody to be a mentor is invaluable. He's like another coach out there. I can't imagine he's not. And I have no problem with him being on the roster. My problem is, to your point earlier, Coach, when are we going to see what we drafted in Torque? When are we going to see that? Can we even see the floor? Like you said, let's not talk about the ceiling. Let's talk about his floor. When are we going to see Javier Baez just at least give us a 250 average, 20 home runs, 60 RBIs, and not kill us at the plate with ugly looking strikeouts? I mean, it's not that he's not playing well, it's how it's happening. That's what's irking me as a fan. I didn't expect this team to make the playoffs. I don't expect this team to make the playoffs. I don't expect this team to be 500, Coach. So if they get there, God bless them. I don't expect it. I don't have that. That's not like this is do or die for the time. No. They're not there yet. But you can't lose games because you just flat out aren't hitting at all. And oh, by the way, here's a fourth out to the opposition. Just in case. You're going to lose your pitching staff, and you're going to make guys like Eduardo Rodriguez say, I definitely don't want to be here. I can't have this. I'm playing, I love the ballpark dimensions because it helps me as a pitcher, but I can't keep losing games 2-1. You can't do that. So that's just my take on it. They've got to get something for Rodriguez this year. Torque's got to have a good second half. Getting Green back and being solid. Let's get Schoolwell back healthy. Let's get him pitching well. And then next year, let's have Casey Mize back, and hopefully, we'll get Manning back too. But there's a lot of ifs. But that's just how I'm seeing it. What are your final thoughts, Coach, before we wrap this up?
Well, yeah, we get this pitching staff, to be able to perform at its maximum potential. We'll know just how competitive we can be, and that is going to be with Casey Mize, Matt Manning, and Tarek Skubal likely involved. I mean, we have some other guys coming up, that we'll see soon. We had a youngster pitch, 5 no-hit innings the other day. He looked like somebody that could be, a long-termer. We have Jackson Jobe that's down there trying to, become a potential ace type.
Wilmer Flores too.
Yeah, Wilmer Flores is another pitcher that could be up here. We've seen the Will Vests. We've seen the Alex Langs emerge and be people that are definitely fixtures in our bullpen. We need to see that with guys that swing the bat. We have not had a catcher since Alex Avila's 1 year as an all-star really do anything of any kind of substance offensively.
Yeah.
And what Jake Rogers is giving, that's not good. I mean, it's just not sustainable. This is not going to be somebody that we're going to be able to hang our hat on. Spencer Torkelson, this isn't sustainable. This isn't what we're going to be looking at. I think, with guys like, Zach McKinstry, okay, I think we're going to find more players like that, involved with the Detroit Tigers. And, he's a local. He's a state of Michigan. He's a Sports Peninsula native. I wanted to say he went to Central Michigan University and played baseball there. Why the Chicago Cubs and Los Angeles Dodgers didn't want to bring and keep him around, I don't know. Because, he gets on base. He runs like the wind. He can play multiple positions. He actually can hit for some power. He's intriguing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's intriguing. Javi Baez, it would be a great gentlemanly move for him to move on from the Detroit Tigers at the end of the year for a change of scenery and sign a 1-year show me deal somewhere, and then get it figured out, and then maybe sign a 2-year deal somewhere else, and then maybe he gets another maybe 2-3 year deal with big money to finish things up. But that's all he's really looking at. If he sticks around with us and is just going to kind of bury in and just take this money, it is not going to be. I don't know how that's going to work. They may just cut ties with him then.
Could happen.
Third base is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Third base is wide open. We don't know what's up there. Riley Green, we do know that's our center fielder. That guy's our center fielder. Matt Vierling's, I think, a stopgap guy. He's a tour guy, a tour duty guy. Akil Badou's fun. He's, a trusted Tiger. We like him. I can see him being involved in the broadcast team in the next 5 to 6 years, because, he's kind of got that demeanor about him as well. He's somebody as a fourth outfielder type. Sure. Jace Young, we're going to want to see him come up. Whomever we draft, in this slot, I think is going to be a person that, swings the baseball bat. It's not going to be a pitcher. We really need to start splashing on some things or find that Ivan Pudge Rodriguez signing, who is going to be that guy that's a catalyst in turning it over. And Miguel's money is going to be, greatly in part being able to be used for that.
And that's where we get into that conversation where will Chris Ilitch spend the money at that point? Because Dad had to overpay for Pudge. Pudge was not getting any offers like that, not even close.
No.
And Mr. I took a gamble, and it paid off because Pudge was fine. That back was fine. He was great in Detroit, and that opened the door for Maglo Ordonez and Rondo White, Fernando Vina, and then it happened. They're going to have to get a guy like that. Now you can move Javi Baez to second base, and obviously that's another podcast episode. But there's options there. But yeah, this year it's critical they keep developing who they've got. They get something for Eduardo Rodriguez at the deadline, and you hope Javi Baez can turn around. And to your point, and I didn't really think much about that. If he really is that dissatisfied in Detroit, wow, to walk away from $110 million guaranteed, you're betting high on yourself. Max Scherzer did that, and it paid off for him. I don't think Javi Baez is in that conversation, but he's a good ball player. He's a very good ball player when he's on his game. Let's hope we see that. But
absolutely.
But for Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mirrors, I'm Drew, folks. Take care, and thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like the podcast. We really appreciate everybody's support and everyone's listenership and viewership. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and listening. Remember, when you want to hear about sports in a great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.